they've come through the longest Q school in history. We've had 10 days of Q school, and the one name on everyone's lips heading into it was, of course, Raymond van Barneveld. Barney is back. He secures his tour card on the final day of Q school yesterday when we're talking what's next for the 5-time world champion. Now he is back on the tour.
Of course, he was only the name on everyone's lips because Stampe and Mark Walsh decided, miss this year. They don't have anything left to prove. But the 5-time world champion, I mean, he really doesn't have anything left to prove, but he sure played like he did, because that was some really, really impressive stuff from him over the course of the 7 days that he played. And you can't say anything but that. And it does tell you how difficult Q school is, that he was in a right scrap on the final day against Benito van de Pas. And maybe that's being a little bit harsh calling it a scrap, because it was a fairly high quality match. It easily could have gone the other way. And as things turned out, now we don't know if things would have turned out the same had Barney lost that first match, because pressures would have been different. Benito van de Pas might have gone through, some other players. It would have affected how everything else went. But assuming everything else went according to plan, it would have actually meant Raymond van Barneveld didn't end up with a tour card, which would have been a shame, because over the course of those 7 days, or really we should say 10 days, because there were other players who played on 3 other days, Raymond van Barneveld was the best player at Q school. And he played like the best player at Q school. And you really can't say anything but that. If you look at the averages of the 500-plus players who competed on at least one day, he was second behind only Scott Mitchell. Scott Mitchell skip's not the right word. He had the right to avoid the first stage and didn't really get going till the final day in the second stage. And he was absolutely brilliant, especially his first 4 matches when the pressure was really on. That was the best single day anyone had at Q school, because Scott Mitchell was unplayable on his way to eventually securing a tour card by beating Danny Baggish in the final. But over the course of the 10 days of Q school, Raymond van Barneveld was the best player, and it wasn't even close. And he even still barely scraped through, which tells you how difficult Q school is. If Barney can take that form and have a little bit more consistency, because that's really the only thing you can say that was wrong, was he was a little inconsistent at time, then he can easily get back into not necessarily every major event this year, because we don't know what the schedule is going to be like. There's not a lot of time to get ready and get the ranking points needed for the World Match Play. But at least in the back end of the year, we'll have a full season. He's playing at a standard that he could do that. And I said he needs to be a little bit more consistent, but that's not meant as a criticism. He hasn't played competitive darts in a year, and he goes out and all you can say is, well, at times he was a little inconsistent. That's actually a really good starting point for him to be at. If he keeps his head straight, and if he keeps this drive that he showed over this past week, he will be a force this year. Maybe not the force that he was a decade ago when he was the world number 1, world number 2, and picking up televised titles. It's far too early to say that. But if he keeps playing like this, and if he keeps getting better day in, day out, like he looked over the course of the week, then he will be a force to contend in these Pro Tour events and to get into the TV events. And if the old Barney's back, we'll talk about it then, because it could be, well, a renaissance. And, he's not all that old. He's, Mervyn King's having a renaissance at basically the same age as Raymond van Barneveld. We'll see how it goes, but you have to be aiming high after a Q school that was as impressive as that.
Absolutely. And who'd have thought this time last year that in 2021 we'd be having ourselves a Raymond van Barneveld appreciation minute? Well, that is exactly what we've got. And if we're talking at the end of this year and the tip of the year is me tipping Raymond van Barneveld to win a tour card, then we've not had a very good year at all, because going into it, he was a big favourite out of all the players at Q School this year. He was right at the top of the list with all the bookmakers to get a tour card, even though he had to go through the first stage as well. It wasn't a case of turning up on day one, 4 days of action, and get your tour card on day one outright, job done. He had to go through a lot of games. Out of all the tour card holders from the European Q School, he played the most games, and in some cases played double the amount of games of some players that picked up tour cards over the last 4 days. And I was looking as well, you speak about the averages over the course of the 7 days that he played, 94.62, and I had a look back, the Players' Championship events that he played in 2019, 92.57. So in those settings, he's improved on where he was in his last year as on the tour, which tells me, I think, all you need to know about how serious Barney is about coming back on the tour. A lot of people have said he's only coming back because he needs the money. He's missed out on loads of exhibitions because of the virus. He's not being able to earn as much as he thought he would. This is the only option for him to get some money. Well, look at what he's done over the last couple of weeks at Q School. And as I say, playing the 7 days, you need to make a note of that as well, because he didn't have it all his own way. There was some ups and downs. And you mentioned the Benito van der Pas game there. He was a player going into that final day that needed a big run as well. And it was a great game to follow on Dark Connects. Benito was 3-2 up. Barney comes back with a couple of big legs, and Benito even misses a ball for a 1-6-7 to make it 5-all, and then he would have had the throw. So it did get very tight towards the end. But I think overall, looking back on the 2 weeks, Barney fully deserved that tour card. And if he can carry on the way he's going, what we've seen, then he's going to be someone to keep an eye on, and he is going to be challenging. And another thing to point out as well is he has got experience now of playing in PDC events under these COVID secure settings that we're in at the moment, the bubble, the testing, getting there early, not being able to move around as much outside the venues. He's had that experience for the last couple of weeks. So going into the next few months at least, which is how these events are going to be run, they're going to be running in blocks of 4 or 5. The TV events, if we get some more than the UK Open, behind closed doors, he does know how that all works, and he's had some success. Okay, he's not gone all the way at the end and got his tour card outright in the final stage, but he's done enough. He's got the wins that he needed. He's got the points, and when the pressure was on in that Benito van der Pas game, he showed his true colours. He showed his true form, and he shows that he is serious about this. And we'll see how he gets on over the next couple of years. But the signs are good, I think, for Raymond van Barneveld that this could be a good year, and we could see him start to climb up those rankings very quickly.